And a very warm welcome to you, Ipsita.
Thank you, Rajan.
We're on a wonderful conversation because this is also about dreams, right? And if you look at the series, we've called it the I Have a Dream. And it is to see how India as a country can live up to the dreams of people like yourselves and, a billion others in the country. But more so, is it possible for all of us to encapsulate a dream for India that is collaborative, that brings all of us together, and your dream becomes the dream of everyone in India. So let me begin, Ipsita, by asking you that if you were to wake up on 15th August, 2047, and look at the India around you, let me put you on the spot. What would you see?
It's a great question, Rajan. And just before I start, it's interesting that you started off talking about dreams. About 3-4 months ago, we launched something called Dreams Unlocked across the country for India's youth. And I'll talk about it a little later, but the idea of dreams is so compelling. So I think there's a lot of attachment to the idea of dreams. So yes, you have put me on the spot. So let me see. I wake up on August 15th in 2047. I think first it's all the things that we all talk about: a robust economy, advanced infrastructure, a GDP per capita that matches any of the developed world. But I think beyond that, when I think about the India of the future, I think about the India that we all love, the India that makes Rajan, you stay, me be here, which is the preservation of the enormous diversity that we have, the ability to unlock the potential of every child in the country, to create an environment that not only makes our best stay back, but pulls the best from the world into the country that is ours. So I think in my mind, preserving some of these things and ensuring that we have the advantages that we've always had that are a little bit invisible to the world because of the lack of advanced infrastructure and other things, around diversity, around the ability to live and house so many different cultures, languages, communities. And that to me is truly what's very powerful about India.
You spent your whole life, Ipsita, in tech, right? As Aparna mentioned. And, even I'm seeing in a lot of the work we do, in the role of technology has become so important. And especially when from the dream that you just described, right? A socio-economic, strong India, so many other things. How do you see the role of technology? What aspects of that do you see really being more meaningful than others, as we go on this long journey to 2047?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And yes, in some form or the other, whether it was selling Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck or Saas Bahu cereals and Kabaddi, or aircraft engines or gas turbines, tech or deep tech has always been an area of focus for me. And I think the first thing that it's important for us to ground ourselves in is just how much India adopts and adapts tech to be what we need it to be. So if you look at many of the surveys that have been done for young people across the world, in India, for example, young people believe AI is here to serve us. And in many developed countries, young people believe AI is here to replace us. So just the sheer optimism towards technology, I think, is one of the strongest things we have going for us. And we've seen how mobile phones and financial digital payments and other types of technology have really transformed the way we function and work in India. But if you think about it to the next level, it's absolutely fascinating. And when you bring AI into the picture, and we're going to see many evolutions of AI, I'm convinced, over the next 3 to 5 years. It will look nothing like it looks now. It will look nothing like it looks 18 months from now. But if you think about 3 or 4 things that can be really powerful from a technology point of view, when you think about AI, one, think about how it unlocks education. If you think about the child, and the child in remote or even metro cities in India, where the primary language is either not English or Hindi. And if AI has the ability to translate seamlessly for a child, their learning ability, so that they are learning physics, math, chemistry from the best teachers across the country, but they are not having to be in the same location, nor are they having to be able to speak the language that the teacher is speaking in. Now think about it from our gig economy perspective. Just think about the fact that we have the largest gig economy in the world. We have the largest number of freelancers in the world. Imagine the ability to use tech to build digital twins that allow people to scale on their work. You know, if you think about uh, roles or jobs that you don't think about every day, like tutors, like astrologers. Think about the idea of being able to provide them with the ability to build a digital twin and how they can scale the kind of work that we do. It's really unique in our country in terms of how many people actually freelance across multiple roles and multiple jobs. These are just two examples of things that technology can really unlock for us from a future perspective. And, you know, I'll give you one more example around the student. We have about 10 million teachers in India. We have 1 crore teachers. We have 250 million students. By the time we catch all the teachers up to the way that we want 250 million students to learn, we will lose generations of students. So if you think about the idea of some level of teacherless teaching, a child being able to come into a computer lab, sit in front of an AI computer, and ask a question 5, 6, 7 times in any language that they like to understand a concept in physics or chemistry or math or statistics better. Just imagine what that unlocks, especially in a country where we just don't have enough time for teachers or enough qualified teachers to teach all of these children.
You know, you talk about such an important part, right? Because even if we look at the future, you know, and we talk of India's workforce, you know, what are the skills the teachers are going to teach the young people today, right? How do you use AI better? What are those jobs that are going to be needed? Maybe, yes, we can see what's going to be needed a few years from today, but beyond that, you know, and how do you look at, you know, learning as a constant process for not only young people, but even those who are, you know, in workforces today? You rightly said, right? AI, is it serving you? Is it replacing you, right? Today, if you understand AI, you get it to work with you, you have a job. If you're not touching AI, I don't know how long you will last, because the efficiency and productivity of people around you will just jump up probably, you know, and you may not be able to get there. But that's just that agentic AI today starting process. But when you extrapolate that and, you know, you're deeply looking at the future, and let's have some fun, you know, trying to think, what are those jobs, right? That people will have, and really what do they need to do today to be able to prepare for them? And how long will those jobs stay with them?
So those are really tough questions. I don't know, Rajan, if I can answer those questions just because I'm in tech, but let me.
No, but we are thinking this together, right? I
I
mean, yeah, we are thinking
agree.
of that India, and we are trying to push some questions, because
Yeah,
what we talk today is going to be viewed, you know, all the way up to 2047. Yeah, Ipsita. So,
exciting.
yeah.
Let me give you one example. You know, we keep talking about how AI is going to replace jobs, but I don't know, have you ever sat outside of a radiology department or a hospital room where lab testing is being done, where doctors are coming out and informing patients of illnesses that they have found or you know, test results that they have gotten? And you'll see that multiple families are sitting without any guidance, without any help, and hearing devastating news. Now imagine if AI took care of all the work that those doctors or those nurses or those technicians had to do, and those people instead could do what patients really needed beyond getting the news, which is giving them the empathy that they need, giving them the path from a difficult diagnosis to what does it take to walk a patient through cure. I think we forget that there's a bunch of things that we just don't have time to do. And so there are experiences that people have, whether it's in the world of healthcare, education, financial services, where we just don't have enough time for people or customers to feel everything that they need to be on their journey. So I think what we're going to end up doing is not replacing people from having jobs, but changing the way they think about jobs. Bringing things like navigation. If you walk into Tata Memorial Hospital and you see family after family trying to navigate the hospital, all the doctors are sitting in rooms, all the technicians are sitting in rooms absolutely flooded with work. Imagine if AI took care of 75 or 80 or 90% of that work. And they had the time to actually guide. They had the time to actually help people navigate. So I see enormous positivity in the opportunity that it creates. And I can't tell you that I know all the types of jobs that would come, but this is one that I imagine all the time.
No, I think it's interesting, right? Thanks to AI, human beings are being able to tap into their humanness, much more than ever before, right? Because today instead of just thinking of somebody like what you rightly said in the case of a doctor, just doing your surgery or performing your task, you're actually looking at, how do you interact? What should you say? What is that emotion that will connect people? And that connectedness amongst human beings, hopefully will get enhanced rather than, get more separated from in these areas. And another aspect of the human nature is, creativity, right? I think, creativity is something that, probably AI is going to reach last. If not, we don't know if it'll get there. But definitely bringing out the creative part of India. And I think, even as a government, there is the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies that is being set up in India, looking at careers that will combine technology with creativity as new areas, right? As we think of those spaces. In those spaces particularly, do you see, not only jobs and, opportunities, but also entrepreneurial, opportunities there for India to kind of leapfrog into a role of leadership?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, think about the basic, if you put technology aside for a while. We're a 5,000-year-old civilization of storytelling. Two of the most powerful stories in the entire world come out of India, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And if you go to places like Indonesia, they are fundamental to actually the stories that have been created in those countries as well. So it is natural to us. I always used to say when I was at Star, that actually Indians don't watch cricket. You just have to actually watch the Ashes tournament where 10 and a half Indians, dial in to watch the match. Indians watch 11 Indian players' stories play out on the field, right? So we are by nature both storytellers and consumers of stories. So from a creativity point of view, I think there is no question that technology will help unlock more. And again, I'll give you an example of at least the way I imagine it in my head. Take something as simple as we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, female workforce participation in the country, in the world. Now imagine if a woman who has some amount of time, but is restrained by other parts of her ecosystem from things that she has to do or chores that she has to take care of, or being stuck in the environment of her home. If she has a companion in a device that provides her with all the basic work that she needs, all the research that she needs, all the first drafts that she needs to look at, an ability to help her write the ideas and thoughts that she has better, you suddenly unlock a person who actually might be quite creative, who just doesn't have the resources to go find a partner and go find other ways to find a partnership to work with. So I think that's just one example of multiple ways in which I keep saying, when I meet journalists, I always say, the first draft is the hardest draft to write, but your creativity comes after that first draft. Imagine if you had the capabilities and technology to put the first draft together in your own voice, in something that is continuously learning about how you would do something. Imagine right now in this conversation, if AI had captured enough of the interviews you were doing, Rajan, and just based on the way I was responding and captured the kind of things that I usually talk about or think about, could pop up questions that you could choose to address or not address, versus we get off this and say, gosh, I wish I had talked about that, or gosh, I wish I had asked that. So it unlocks creativity at a different level. What I think it does not do, which and I hope that it does not do, is I don't think it replaces natural human creativity. There is emotion, there is experience. All these things drive storytelling. And if you think about it, even search engines gave us the impression that, everything was going to change dramatically. You could find ways to get other people's scripts, other things people had written or done. But that didn't change the fact that creativity became, there were more standards put on creativity, and storytelling became better than it ever was before.
What you said so appropriately, the technology triggers creativity. And what we are trying to say, creative technologists, right? But the technology piece will become so seamless that what you will be left with, what you rightly said, is just that human creative power, right? And if you can collaborate on that and build not only storytelling, right? I think creative power sends people into space. It's the creative energy that drives everything everywhere. So I think all of those aspects also get unlocked of where human imagination can go, right? And I think that's what
Absolutely.
turbocharge over the next 20 22 years as we get to 2047, because we're going to have technology, we're going to have the ability for today as sci-fi, you could imagine things and you can see it actually happen, right? And we're seeing that. So how the pace of that is going to be so fast. I mean, at least that's what it looks like. um how does how do people and how do jobs, how do enterprises, keep pace, right? What is it going to take? What is that core DNA? Is there a shift firstly in the DNA that's needed? And what is that if needed, to navigate this space from here on?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I think it's to get in the game and stay in the game. I think we need to continuously be experimenting. My biggest concern when we first started talking so significantly about AI a couple of years ago was not so much the individual, but small businesses versus large businesses. Because large businesses, large enterprises have the means and the resources to invest in and experiment with AI while still having large numbers of accountants and lawyers checking and rechecking the work. But when it comes to small and medium-sized enterprises, my concern was we were going to create a digital divide, because the resources to experiment, the skills to experiment don't so easily exist with smaller enterprises. So, Rajan, as you know, we actually started working with CII and started running workshops across the country. And I think we've done almost 10,000 MSMEs now, where we just worked on basic hacks, basic AI hacks for different types of professionals in a small or medium-sized enterprise. Why? Because of this exact concept that I think is really important, which is it's important to get in and to try. I tell you, I got my first AI PC, I don't know, 6, 7 months ago. For the first 2 months, I didn't touch it. And I didn't touch it because I just couldn't think of where in my day I was going to incorporate the experimentation or the learning or the driving. Then I had to start forcing myself. And I think that's where you start to develop this ability to adapt, right? So I think that's going to be really important. But I also think as a country, we can't forget that we have to do the hard yards still. We have to ensure the infrastructure, the literacy, get the AI labs in place, get the computer labs in place, drive the thinking about technology. I think a lot of these things are things that we still have to make sure that we capture, because we can get carried away by the theoretical stuff, but without the hard infrastructure, we are going to struggle to keep up and get up to speed.
Yeah, you bring in the individual, right? I think it comes down so much to what you do, what I do, what everyone does. But that's one thing that we're seeing this, country get empowered with. You mentioned the gig economy, right? People are standing up, creating livelihoods. We are deeply invested in the creator economy, and we're seeing the kinds of things people are doing and the kinds of, opportunities they're creating for themselves using platforms that is reaching out to millions of people, bringing the best creative aspect of themselves, but also, delivering knowledge and expertise to others, influencing their choices and decisions. The government has actually, for the first time, talked of a social security for gig workers, right? I think big step to recognize that there will be individuals who will find new ways to get their livelihoods. The government working with, industry, with society. You raise CII. What's the power of collaboration, right? And how do we build trust, and how do we make sure that together we make the right moves? Because that's going to be very critical, and especially for India, right? And if India wants to use and leverage its young potential, that human capacity on a global stage, we got to do that very effectively. Do you see that happening? Can you suggest a few things that we can do more of or better to make that happen?
Look, I think the first step to thinking about how we build trust is to recognize that we have an enormous amount of trust as a community already. I mean, we get up every morning and some 700, 800 million newspapers, bread, milk is, delivered every single day. And we function with enormous diversity across the country. You and I can be living right next to each other, and we will not celebrate Diwali the same way. We will not celebrate Navratri, or what I call Durga Puja, the same way. And that is even more the case when you think about people from different religions, from different communities. If you think about this and the fact that we are very comfortable with technology, I think collaboration comes naturally to us. And I think that the steps that we see government taking on things like social security, building a safety net, and you combine that, I was on a flight a few days ago to the US, and I was sitting next to somebody who is at one of the big tech companies. And he was spending half of his time when he was in the US at a conference with his company. I won't name the company right now. And the other half of the time meeting angel investors for something that he and his colleagues wanted to start. And when I asked who you're going to start it with, he said, my boss and 3 other people on my team. So you don't see this anywhere else in the world. You actually see everybody wants to be an entrepreneur in this country. And I'm talking about someone who's working for one of the 4 big tech companies, right? So it's fascinating to see. And then when I started delving a little deeper to say, what kind of things do you want to build and what do you want to do? He was talking about digital twinning and the particular needs of a market like India in digital twinning. So the ideas and the vision are there. We need to help unlock it. And unlocking it means, I think, a combination of listening and enabling. The more we listen, the better we are going to be able to enable. And the more we enable, the more ideas people will have because they'll be able to imagine what they can do.
You're so right. I was at a convocation of university students recently, and I asked the question, how many of you want to be job creators and how many are seekers, right? And nearly everyone put up their hands to be job creators. So, I think that ambition, that power, that hunger is there. And there are a lot of problems to be solved in India. But that's where, we see this whole, startup ecosystem growing. But enterprises, startups coming together, you must have seen many examples. We see a lot of that. Is it moving in the right way? How do you align better interests? What more can government do to, enhance that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think it's moving in the right direction. But as I said a little bit earlier, I think we have to get the fundamentals right. And there are a few things on the fundamentals that I think as companies and as corporate that we should certainly be working on. One of them is I think we really need to work on the quality of talent that we have in market and help enable and improve the quality of talent that we have. And I think we need to start investing in building the right amount of deep tech and R&D. If we don't, we are going to end up being left behind because the needs that we fulfilled as a back office to the Western world for a couple of decades is just not going to be around in the long term. But We have both the IQ as well as the capabilities in country. But if you think about it, Rajan, how many people in India who are at the top of their class go on to get a PhD in a pure science? You find that people who are at the top of their class go to an IIT and then they go to an IIM and then they go get a job, or as you said, many of them now decide to start companies. We need people in deep tech. We need it to be attractive and glamorous to do PhDs and to build capabilities. Even in something like supply chain, we need to, this is the right point in time where most of the world is becoming more and more insular, for us to go grab supply chain experts and tech experts and bring them back to the country and afford them and pay them what we need to ensure that we get to where we need to from a foundational development of technology and development of things like manufacturing and supply chain capabilities. Without that, we will end up missing the boat.
You've also spent a lot of time in the US, so I see that, somewhere, sometimes we feel the tides are favoring, a lot of people are kind of making the choice to come back because, what you rightly said, I think, our spend on R&D as private sector is so small compared to maybe what the West and so many other countries, China and others spend. But looking at geopolitics today, the US, India, this entire thing that's going on, with the trade, with immigration. Do you think this is a good time for established people to think about India from both, their own opportunity perspective, but to come and be a part of not only the growth of India, but also to give back in a country of your choice, the diaspora? Do you have any message for that section of people who are invested in changing the future of India?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great time. Let me say, even before I talk to those people, it's a great time for people to grab talent. And I don't think it's any more about giving back. I grew up in the States. I moved to India at a time when a lot of people thought moving to markets like India were about giving back. Today, I think moving to India is about getting. There's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot to do, and it doesn't necessarily feel like that everywhere in the world. We're still one of the few economies that has a robust growth rate. So I think this is the time for people to also grab talent and make it meaningful for people to come in. When I speak to people in the States right now and I ask them, a lot of the concerns they have is, can they come into India and fit culturally? Can they work in an environment where they have gotten used to having less hierarchy, less deference, etc.? I think we need to make an effort across our organizations to give people that comfort that India has changed. We are all changing. It's like you said, you spoke at a university convocation and you asked people whether they wanted to work for someone or they wanted to make people work for them. Think about the answer you got. Think about India 20 years ago when all of us graduated and how different the answer would have been. I think it's our job now in India to show people what India is today and what it can be for people in terms of opportunities. So culturally, they don't feel like we are going to be a huge adjustment for people to make. So I think even more than anything else, it's the opportunity to grab talent for us now.
Yeah, and even global talent, right? I mean, I think today India has the opportunity to attract, global talent, which is non-Indian, but very valuable to a country like India because we are the fastest growing country today and probably will continue to be so for a while. And in that light, I think, we keep coming back to this point of, the cultural aspects, how easy is it to live and do business in India? The quality of higher education. I know all of that is changing, but anything that can accelerate that pace, when we talk of our India of 2047, maybe India by itself will get to a particular point, maybe by 2055 or 2060. Can we do some things to accelerate that and make that happen in this 2-decade time frame from now on? Any catalytic thought here?
Look, I think there are three advantages we have, four actually, that make us unique and special. One, the value we place on education. and learning. I think that by in and of itself makes us a higher IQ country because we value education tremendously. The second is what I said earlier, which is our ability to adapt and adopt technology for what we want it and need it to be. The third is the combination of our ability to handle diversity and ambiguity. I mean, think about the fact that if the beginning of every day, in which developed country in the world do you have the lack of clarity on what your day is going to look like? You'd face it in India in a very different way. In fact, it's energizing and exciting and dramatic, but that's the truth about the sort of the fabric of the way we exist as a community. And the fourth one is another very unique one. For a country that is so strong in quants, we also have a very strong liberal arts culture that is embedded and normal to us. You don't find that in most other Asian countries. In most other Asian countries, you will find a very strong quant nature, but you will rarely find engineers. I've seen engineers of my parents' generation quoting Shakespeare regularly. Also quoting Rabindranath Tagore because I'm a Bengali, but I'll leave that one aside. Because we have this mix, and that these things make us able to unlock imagining where the future is going to go and getting ahead to be able to serve and drive it. I think what we can do as a community, whether it's government or it's corporations or it's small and medium-sized businesses or it's education or educational institutions, is to unlock through the use of technology the ability for people to grow, the ability for people to use. My biggest fear is how many kids under the age of 15 there are right now who are wallowing in schools or in environments where they have no access to knowledge and learning, where we cannot even begin to unlock their IQ or their potential. And I think we really need to think carefully about not using the same books and using the same solutions that we have used all along, because it will just not move us fast enough. As you said, the world is moving at too fast a pace. So I think the two things we need to take care of right away is how do we educate our children and educate them fast? And how do we create more and more opportunities? Social security in the gig economy is a great example. But how do you create opportunities for those job creators to actually get the opportunity to try and create jobs?
The aspirational India of 2047 that we talk about has these non-negotiables, right? In our journey, when we innovate, how do we think of inclusivity, affordability, so many of these aspects that are key for India to be able to achieve, what we are aspiring to do. And I must tell you, the more as CII, we go out to other stakeholders, right, beyond industry and really talk to, the poor, the fisher women or these children and, housewives or, the urban, rural communities everywhere. One thing is very clear, the aspiration to see India change is in everyone, right? It's the process. And I think that process through innovation, through accelerated, ways of doing things, of doing them more efficiently, solving problems in India is probably the right way. But it is going to have certain non-negotiables because, Ipsita, I don't think in the history of mankind as a democratically elected country of 1.4 billion people transformed itself from a developing to a developed country. This will be the first such example, right? And I think therefore India will create next practices. We're not going to, best practices are not going to be enough. And in those next practices lie the Indian component of what India can do for India and from India, for the world. So when you look at coming to your HP role, where you are now here in India and you're looking at the India growth, tell us a little about how you're thinking about your company, your role in this process over the next 20 years, because post this conversation, I'm going to tap into you, even as CII, to hold you to do and work closely to make that happen, right?
Absolutely. I have no doubt you will, when you already have been. So, So actually, I'm happy to talk about that, Rajan. But just before I do, what you said is really compelling, right? Never in the history of the world in a democratic country have you seen this kind of growth if we are able to achieve it. Um, and I think, you know, one of the pieces that we should really think about in that is I think to achieve it, we have to be insatiably curious. I remember living in China between 2011 and 2014 in Shanghai. And it was at my time when I was at GE. I was the chief commercial officer of GE for India and China. And I would go meet customers. And what would absolutely astound me was how curious they were about how the rest of the world functioned. You would go and meet an oil and gas chairman, and he would start asking about HR practices in GE. Then he would ask about classes at Harvard Business School. Then he would ask about, because there's this constant desire, what is everybody else in the world doing and how do I do it better? And I think as we get excited about who we are and what we're doing, we should develop this muscle to be insatiably curious. When we see quality production of semiconductors or electronic goods or something else in another market, what is it that that quality is? Why do they have it? We need to start thinking about ways in which people are doing things that we may not do the same way, but we need to understand it fully. And so I would say the one thing, because you asked me the question a couple of questions back, insatiable curiosity about how the rest of the world is doing it is great for us to know, and then we can do with it what we want. We tend to talk more about the ways we are going to do things. And I think it would be great for us to spend some time understanding how others are doing things. Now to your point about HP, look, I think I'm really lucky. And let me say this to you in two ways. I happen to work for a company that allows me to focus on the two things that are fundamental to this country's values: education and hard work. With the youngest population in the world, other than sub-Saharan Africa, it's very clear that we are going to be the workforce of the future. And the ability, I mean, what can you make that's better than computers and printers to drive or collaborative tools like Poly to drive success in those couple of areas? If I combine that with the fact that when you're born, your mother doesn't look at you and say, one day you will sell computers and printers. She says, one day, hopefully, you will change the world, help your community, help your country. So I think the opportunities are endless. There are three areas that I spend a lot of time focusing on. One is around education and skilling. What can we do to take technology to both kids and adults who are adapting or learning and needing to be proficient to be able to gain livelihood, get jobs, grow? So we are doing a lot of proofs of concept with multiple state governments. We just signed a very large MOU with the state of Maharashtra to give 300,000 students, 3 lakh students, access to AI computer labs that will allow them to do the teacherless teaching, to access the teacherless teaching that I talked to you about. The second area that we're focusing a lot of time and energy on is SMBs, MSMEs, and ensuring that the digital divide is not wide, that we start to create ways in which vertically, specifically in different verticals, SMEs are able to experience, experiment with, and evolve their usage of AI so that they don't get left behind. And third, a large part of the work that we do now is with India Inc. itself. It's with people like yourselves and your organizations to say, where are you looking to go and how can we help you get there? So we're doing work in smart manufacturing, we're doing work in financial services, we're doing work in healthcare to say, how can AI drive solutions that will even faster grow companies and give companies the opportunity to think about spaces and domains that they haven't worked on yet?
No, I think, this combination of being part of a company that is doing that, as well as you yourself being inclined to do that is lethal, right? And I think this is what India needs, more of. And, we need more young people to kind of, take up bigger challenges and make this change happen. I just see our
Absolutely.
time has run off. But to end and to wrap this up, Ipsita, what's your message to those young people, right? Because, if you were to address that young Indian today, who's not only going to benefit from what India becomes, but be a part of this journey, to create that. What's your message to that young Indian?
So, this is the same message I gave on Dreams Unlocked, which is, as I told you, a program we launched with 40 million kids around the country, where we said, come back to us with an idea you have in one of 6 spaces, whether it's a film or music or business or social impact or technology or gaming. And if you are one of the winners or one of the finalists, we will give you the latest technology in the form of an AI PC, and we will give you a mentor, which is somebody we have a Nobel laureate on the social impact mentorship panel. Multiple people who can help them and guide them. And my statement or message to them was simple. The world only has complex problems to solve for anymore. And we need young people to have purpose. We need them to want to do things for the country, for the community, and drive the most complex or think through the most complex problems and come up with solutions. And we need their ability, their vibrance, their energy, and their ability to collaborate, their lack of deference. Those are the kind of things that we need from people. So if there's one message I have to give is pick a complex problem and decide to work on it. Make it your life's work.
And when you combine purpose with no baggage, the risk-taking ability of young people, and then the ability to support them, what you rightly mentioned, through mentors, through capital, through, the tools that will enable to them to succeed, is probably what will differentiate India, from anywhere else in the world. It's been such a wonderful, it's been a joy chatting with you, Ipsita, on this India at 100 journey. And as I mentioned earlier, look forward to working closely with you to help shape that as well. So thank you for doing this, and let's hope your dream of 15th August 2047 and what you saw around, comes true in that right time. I'm sure you'll be there to celebrate that, and we'll all be there to enjoy that India, that we all dream of today. Thank you. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rajan. This is just a great platform and initiative. So thank you.